You are not short of time. You are wasting it. You pick up your phone to check one message. A few minutes later, you are watching a stranger reorganize a kitchen you will never visit. Then comes a political argument, a disaster, and another video about productivity. You put the phone down feeling strangely tired, although you have done almost nothing. Then the workday begins. A meeting that should have been an email chain that should have been a decision, small requests that feel urgent because somebody else sent them. You tell yourself that important work will happen later. When the inbox is clear, the meetings stop, and life becomes less complicated. But evening arrives, and the thing that matters is still untouched. The book remains unwritten. The difficult conversation remains postponed. The person you love receives the exhausted remains of your attention, and you tell yourself, tomorrow. Nearly 2,000 years ago, the Roman Stoic Seneca described this pattern with brutal accuracy. His argument was not that life is always short. It was that we make it short by living as though time were unlimited. By the end of this video, we will look at 4 ways modern life quietly consumes us and one 7-day practice for taking part of your life back. The real problem. Seneca opens his essay on the shortness of life by challenging a complaint that still sounds familiar. There is never enough time. His answer is severe. It is not that we have a short space of time, but that we waste much of it. That sentence is often turned into a productivity slogan. Wake earlier, work harder, optimize every minute. But that is not quite Seneca's point. He is not saying that every hour must produce money, status, or measurable output. He is asking whether your hours actually belong to you. There is a difference between a full schedule and a full life. You can answer every message, attend every meeting, and reach the evening having advanced everybody's priorities except your own. Seneca calls people trapped in this condition the engrossed, people so occupied that they have no time to examine what their occupation is for. He writes that there is nothing the busy person is less busy with than living. That is the first misunderstanding we need to remove. Wasting time does not always look lazy. Sometimes it looks impressively busy. The man who managed Rome's food, Seneca addressed on the shortness of life to a man named Paulinus, apparently an official responsible for supervising Rome's grain supply. This was not a person with nothing important to do. Feeding Rome was serious work. A failure in the grain system could become a public crisis. That makes Seneca's advice more interesting. He does not approach Paulinus as a teenager avoiding homework. He approaches a capable, responsible man whose public duties have consumed his private life. In modern terms, imagine someone managing a hospital system or major public service. Thousands depend on his competence, and Seneca still tells him, examine the ledger of your own life. You can manage the accounts of an empire and remain careless with your days. This is the uncomfortable part. The greatest thief of time is not always entertainment. It can be responsibility without reflection. Some obligations are real, but we stop questioning the shape they have taken. Meetings survive because they existed last week. Requests become urgent because they arrive with a notification. Life becomes maintenance. We become like a person carefully organizing the furniture in a house that is burning down. Thief. 1. Doomscrolling. The first modern thief is the most obvious, the infinite feed. Doomscrolling creates the feeling that you are doing something responsible. You are staying informed, monitoring danger, keeping up with the world. But information has no natural finish line anymore. A newspaper ended, the feed does not. There is always one more crisis, opinion or piece of context promising to make you feel prepared. Usually it does not. Research has linked doomscrolling with psychological distress and lower well-being. That does not prove every encounter with bad news causes misery. It does support what many people recognize. Compulsive consumption can leave us agitated without making us usefully informed. Seneca did not know smartphones, but he understood the mechanism. He repeatedly warns about allowing the mind to be scattered among too many things. When attention is divided, nothing is absorbed deeply. We collect fragments without gaining wisdom. The problem is not simply the minutes spent scrolling, it is what they replace. 10 minutes of news may serve you. 40 accidental minutes may displace sleep, conversation, or the first difficult step of meaningful work. This is why screen time totals can be misleading. An hour spent calling a friend is not the same as an hour spent refreshing outrage. The Senecan question is not, was I looking at a screen? It is, did I choose this, and was it worthy of the life it cost? Thief 2. Pointless meetings. The second thief wears professional clothing. It appears in the calendar with a polite title, alignment, check-in, sync, review. Meetings can be valuable. Decisions, relationships, and complicated problems sometimes require people thinking together. But a meeting becomes a waste when nobody can explain what it is meant to change. Many meetings survive because declining them feels socially expensive. Attendance becomes a performance of commitment, while protecting time for concentrated work can look like disengagement. Seneca would recognize this. Roman public life was built around social obligations, visits, clients, favors, and status. He describes people rushing from one person's doorway to another, giving their mornings away and receiving almost nothing in return. The modern doorway is a meeting link. Human life includes service, cooperation, and duty. The problem is that we rarely price a request in the currency it actually costs. A 1-hour meeting with 8 people does not cost 1 hour. It costs 8 human hours, plus the attention lost before and after. And yet we often schedule it more casually than we spend a small amount of money. Seneca noticed the same contradiction. People guard their property fiercely, he says, while allowing others to occupy their lives. So, before accepting or arranging a meeting, ask 3 questions. What decision will this produce? Who genuinely needs to be present? Could the same outcome be reached with a short message or document? That is not antisocial. It is respect for everyone's finite life. Thief. 3. Procrastination. The third thief is more subtle because it often hides behind preparation. You decide to begin something meaningful. First, you need the perfect system. You compare tools, redesign your workspace, study successful people, and create a detailed plan. Then, the day ends before the work begins. Seneca writes about people who spend their lives preparing to live. They are always getting ready for the future, sacrificing the present to an imagined version of themselves who will finally have courage, clarity, and discipline. This is procrastination's central promise. Not never, but later. Later feels harmless because later has no pain yet. The novel is easy tomorrow. The application is easy next week. The conversation is easy after the perfect moment arrives. Meaningful work exposes us. We may fail, discover our talent is smaller than our ambition, or choose one path and abandon another. So we postpone the work and preserve the fantasy. An unwritten book can still be brilliant. An unstarted business can still be successful. A conversation you have not had can still end exactly as you hope. Action threatens illusion. This is why Seneca's warning is not merely about scheduling. It is about mortality. While we are postponing, life speeds by. The future is not a warehouse where unused days are safely stored. Every postponed day disappears. Thief 4. Postponing life itself. The fourth thief is the most dangerous, the belief that your real life will begin after the next milestone, after the promotion, after the children are older, after you earn enough, after the stressful season, after you feel confident, after retirement. Seneca mocks the person who promises to begin living at 50 or 60, as though life had signed a contract guaranteeing his arrival. We still make the same bargain. We give the best of our attention to obligations and reserve the leftovers for what we claim to love. We say family matters, then give it our most depleted hour. We say writing matters, then schedule it after every easier task. We say friendship matters, then assume neglected relationships will wait for a clearer calendar. Seneca's harshest line may be this: "You have all the fears of mortals and all the desires of immortals." We know we can lose everything, so we worry like mortal beings, but we desire, plan, and postpone as though we have endless time. That contradiction explains much of modern anxiety. We try to fit an immortal number of ambitions into a mortal life. We want multiple careers, every friendship, every important book, every destination, and every conversation everyone else is having. The result is not a larger life, it is a permanently distracted one. A finite life requires exclusion. To choose one meaningful thing is to allow 1,000 other possibilities to remain unexplored. That is not failure. That is what choosing means. The objection: is this just privileged advice? At this point, Seneca's argument needs a limitation. Not everyone controls the same amount of time. A parent caring for a child, a person working 2 jobs, someone living with illness, or an employee trapped in a rigid workplace cannot simply declare every obligation meaningless and walk away. Time can be taken by poverty, illness, bureaucracy, emergencies, and other people's power. Calling all of that waste can become cruel. Seneca himself lived inside power. He had a major political career and served as an advisor to the Emperor Nero. His life raises a fair question. Is a powerful statesman really the person to lecture others about freedom from busyness? The best response is to separate control from blame. You are not responsible for every demand placed upon you, but you are responsible, where choice exists, for noticing that choice. Seneca's philosophy becomes useful when it helps you find the small territory that is still yours. It becomes harmful when it turns every structural constraint into a personal moral failure. Maybe you cannot reclaim half your week. Can you reclaim 30 minutes? Maybe you cannot refuse the meeting. Can you enter knowing the decision you need and leave when your role is finished? Maybe you cannot avoid exhausting work. Can you protect one conversation from your phone? Freedom is not always the power to redesign your entire life. Sometimes it begins as the refusal to surrender the next available moment unconsciously. What Seneca does not mean. Seneca is also not arguing that rest is wasteful. In fact, he tells Paulinus to withdraw from relentless public duty, but he explicitly distinguishes genuine leisure from numb inactivity. Rest restores your capacity to live. Waste leaves you less alive. A walk, quiet reflection, play, a novel, slow cooking, or conversation can all be part of a well-lived life. The difference is not productivity. The difference is presence and choice. You can waste an hour at work and deeply live an hour at rest. Seneca's real enemy is unconsciousness, reaching the end of a day, a year, or a decade, and discovering that habit, fear, and other people's priorities made your decisions for you. The 7-day time reclamation. Here is the practice to try this week. For 7 days, reclaim the first 30 minutes you can genuinely control. It need not be immediately after waking. Choose the first reliable half hour that is actually available to you. Protect it from input. No news, no social media, no email, no messages unless there is a genuine emergency. Use it for one activity that makes your life feel more deliberately yours. Write the page, practice the language, walk, read philosophy, work on the application, make the art, plan the difficult conversation, sit with the question you keep avoiding. Choose one activity for the week. Do not spend 7 days selecting a better one. Then, each evening, write down 3 sentences. Today, I deliberately gave time to. Today, time was taken by. Today, I carelessly gave time to. Do not judge yourself. Audit yourself. Seneca compares time to an account. The purpose of an account is not shame, it is accuracy. After 7 days, look for the repeated leak. Perhaps it is the phone beside your bed, a purposeless meeting, an automatic yes, or the hour spent trying to feel ready. Change one leak, not your entire personality. Turn off one category of notifications. Decline one unnecessary meeting. Put the phone in another room. Begin the project with an embarrassingly small action. Tell one person that a certain hour is protected. The goal is not to become perfectly efficient. The goal is to prove that your life is not merely something that happens to you. Conclusion. One day you will run out of time. That is not pessimism. It is the one deadline no person escapes. The danger is not simply that life ends. The danger is that we keep waiting to begin it. We imagine time as a road stretching ahead of us. Seneca asks us to see it as water already moving past our hands. You cannot save yesterday. You cannot work inside tomorrow. You can only decide whether this piece of your life will be spent deliberately or surrendered without notice. So when you close this video, do not search for another explanation of how to use your time. Choose the 30 minutes. Choose the work. Choose the person. Choose the life that keeps being postponed. Because you may not be short of time, but you are always spending it.